Hello and welcome to episode 253 of Sudden Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill, and I'm still trying to figure out who I'm going to root for in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
No idea. There's such good stories on both sides.
I was like, I really don't dislike either team.
I don't either. I like Cooper Cup. I like that story. I don't know. It just mystifies me. I like Odell Beckham's story. I
Yeah,
like Matt Stafford's story. I like the defensive story. I like Joe Burrow as Joe Cool. I like Jamar Chase.
yeah. We
I
talked
like Tyler
about,
Boyd. I mean, there's a lot of likable players.
we like the way that Bengals team adjusts in the second half of games.
We like that a lot. We like that a lot because that's really, to me, the key. Because, well, it was a big play to hold them out of the end zone
Oh,
at
yeah.
the end of the first half or keep them off the board. And that's part of it. But that's just the momentum part. That's not a strategy part.
Right.
That was they called a play and you beat the play and so they didn't score. But the strategy in the second half, like you and I talked about offline, that was amazing. That was really well, and Kansas City couldn't adjust to it.
No. And they've done a great job all year of making those second half adjustments in close games or games where they're losing. And they
Yeah,
figure it out in the second half and they execute. So,
yeah, I was very, very impressed. Um, I know what are the Rams? How many points they favored by?
4.5, is it, or is it more than that?
I think 4.5 might be between 3.5 and 4.5.
Well, if you're
Yeah, I
looking
would.
at it, you
If I'm
figure,
sitting here right now, I would probably take that bet with the Bengals.
I think I would too. I mean, Joe Burrow was sacked 50 something times in the regular season. But he was also sacked 9 times against the Titans, and they won against the Titans. Because everyone's like, well, the Bengals have a shaky offensive line. Then you got Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and that whole crew up front. And they should wreak havoc on him. But
Maybe they said the same thing about the Chiefs with the linebackers in their front line.
yeah. And they said about the Titans. But like I said, the Titans literally sacked Joe Burrow 9 times in a
I
playoff
know.
game, and they won. So,
Yeah, I love the Bengals kicker. If it comes down to a close game, if I had to pick between him and the Rams kicker, I'm taking the Bengals kicker every time.
oh, easily, yeah.
So I mean, that's got to be some serious consideration in a close game. That he's like ice.
Now, this may be a little crazy, but, obviously people have heard this podcast before. Hopefully they're listening to it. And if you haven't, we're giant Steeler fans. So I was trying to think, if Joe Burrow wins the Super Bowl and gets it out of the way first, is this what's best for the Steelers? You know, he gets it out of the way this year when the Steelers aren't even contenders, and then maybe the team gets, lethargic. They lose some guys down the road. They have to pay him, and then they're like, lots of teams.
Well, yeah, I mean it's tough. Once you have to start. I mean, I'm looking at the Buccaneers. There's a big thing in the Tampa paper today. Is replacing Tom Brady the biggest problem the Bucks are facing, and it listed all the free agents they have in their cap space. So I mean, they're going to lose a lot of guys,
Yeah.
and so it just happens. I mean, unfortunately, when the Steelers were in their heyday in the '70s, you didn't have to replace. I mean, you didn't have to worry about that stuff.
No.
But then you had to deal with it. The next Super Bowl runs for the Steelers in the '90s, you knew you were going to lose some of those guys. And the one thing about the Steelers that we admire, but we also know is a problem, is the Steelers tend to hang on to somebody a little longer maybe than they should because of loyalty.
Yeah.
And that usually ends up costing you both in the pocketbook and on the field.
It's true. So my thought process, like I said, is if Burrow wins now, maybe it takes away. It doesn't. He doesn't strike me. He strikes me as a Brady that's never going to have enough, and he's always going to be chasing, the 7 Super Bowls that Brady won. So it probably doesn't matter. But part of me was like, well, maybe if they win now, they'll be less likely to win later.
Yeah, possibly true.
And you kind of
Possibly.
have, you have the Bengals who were basically built with all draft picks, right?
Yeah.
And then the Rams who
And the Rams, who
apparently
weren't built with any draft picks.
they apparently hate the draft, and they trade away all their picks.
Yeah, they
And
weren't. And it's funny because when George Allen was there with the Rams and then and later on with the Redskins, that was his philosophy. He didn't want any draft picks either. He only wanted proven veteran players.
and I think I don't know which other teams would be in this position. I think the Steelers thought they had been for the last 2 years. Luckily, they didn't mortgage their future entirely for it. But if you have an Aaron Donald and a Jalen Ramsey and some of those guys on defense, and you've got your cup and your guys are all paid, like it probably does pay just to, at some point you push your chips on the table, right? And you're just like, we're
Right.
going all in. This is it.
Saying this is who we are. Yeah. And then you're also in a position that when where the Rams are, which is interesting, if you have to let one guy move on because you can't pay two guys at the same position,
Yeah.
there's going to be another guy on another team that'll come for that money because they know that they're going to be showcased in that offense, and they'll make their money. They'll make more money than they were making with the team they were, and they'll have a better chance of winning. So it's worked out for them.
Yeah. I think
But they're to the point where they're going to have to get free agents, though, because they don't have anything left to trade.
no, but I mean, again, they're in the Super Bowl this year, so, and I think they've got another
Can't knock
year.
it. Yeah, can't knock it.
Yeah, with most of these guys, so they got it.
I mean, I think it's something good to say when you have two teams in the Super Bowl that got there two different ways.
Yeah.
I like that. And the fact that the Rams added two key pieces during the course of the year.
Yeah, it's true.
So they get one in the offseason and then two during the course of the year. So they were able to analyze on the fly what they needed, look at the available players, and make deals for them.
And you look at that Jared Goff deal, they realize he's a sunk cost. We got to get off this money. We'll give up an extra pick. We'll go get Stafford, and we'll change things up. And it seems to have worked. So good for them. Although they did make the Super Bowl with Goff.
Beckham fell in their lap.
Yeah.
When he became a free agent, he could pick.
Yeah.
And he goes to a place where they're putting the ball in the air. Now, the only thing that surprised me was he knew he wasn't going to be the number one receiver going in. And he's got a number one ego. But obviously, he has fit in really well with that team, and he's been key to their success.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to the game. I think it's going to be one of the better Super Bowls.
Well, I guess since we talked good NFL, we should probably talk medium NFL and bad NFL. What do you want to start with?
Well, I guess let's go medium NFL.
All right, so
we'll go good, medium, bad.
So the Washington Commanders.
Yes.
It just
it leaves me wanting.
Yeah.
And I said to you offline, I would almost be better off with the Washington Football Club than Commanders. Commanders, it's just not enough for me. It's just not. I don't know.
And I mean, people have pointed out like, what you're going to chant "Commanders" in the stands, which sounds silly.
You're not going to chant. It's too long.
And
You'll never say Commanders.
We know how much sports reporters love bad dad jokes. I mean, that's pretty much what they live on because that's their audience. And, this team wasn't in command this week. That player certainly has no command of the offense. I mean, you've set yourself up for a ton of bad dad jokes, haven't you?
Yeah. He didn't obey the commandments.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of things.
I mean,
that
right. Coach.
It's just not.
Yeah.
I don't know. To take as much time as they took. See, this kind of is. We talked about the Guardian situation.
Yeah.
When you take over a year to do something, in this case, almost 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
But when you take this much time, you can never match the expectations people have because of the amount of time you took. And people would expect, this is going to be a great nickname. It's going to be a great logo. This is going to be a great look. And it's
Yeah.
And when it's not good.
Also, like I said, Commander just feels so generic and lame. Like, Red Wolves would have been slightly disappointing, right, if they were the Washington Red Wolves. But now that name sounds like gold, sort of like the, new Coke situation. But I feel like Red Wolves you could eventually get behind. I don't think Commander you're ever really going to get to.
No, I think it's going to be tough.
Is their mascot going to be like a Captain Crunch looking dude? Like, I don't even know where you go with this. It just...
No, what was the USFL team was... Oh, I can't remember what the USFL team was. But New Jersey was the Generals.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the Generals.
No, it seems lame. And I guess that leads us into another not great NFL thing. Brian Flores.
Yeah. Some of the most serious allegations I've ever heard against the NFL. I mean, really, really. I mean, the Belichick text,
Yeah.
that's your smoking gun. And now, and the Giants are just denying, well, how would Belichick know anything? Well, obviously he did. And obviously somebody in your organization told him something. Because it's not like Belichick is going to, Belichick is not going to share anything unless he knows it to be true.
Yeah.
Or he's really not going to share anything. That was a personal email he thought he was sending to the new Giants coach. He never expected that to be out there in the light of day.
No.
But that's what you have here. And then to go further and say that you were offered $100,000 a game for every game you lost.
And he says he
at
has
a time when you were accused of tanking.
Yeah.
A pretty serious allegation.
And he says he has receipts, if you will. So, I mean,
yeah, I'll be curious what he can produce. I mean, that's, but it's just one of those things, Jason. Somebody does this, right?
Right.
It's career suicide.
Yeah.
I mean, you were pretty much saying, I guess I'll never coach in the NFL again, but I'm going to do this for the greater good. When you do it, I mean, I wouldn't take that lightly. That this guy, if he knows that, and he's coming out saying it, I mean, I respect that.
Well, I also think, he's making the sacrifice because clearly you have a league that's the majority of players are African American. You only have one non-white owner. And white coaches seem to continue to get jobs. And then, you look at the guy for the Texans who they hired last year. He comes into a debacle of a situation. Terrible GM, terrible owner. You got the Deshaun Watson situation, and the Texans were competitive.
Yeah.
And he was out the door right away.
Yeah.
And, you look at the numbers, and, African American coaches they seem to come in, they're getting jobs with very little chance to be good in year one or year two. And they're rarely making it past year one or year two. And, right now we have
Mike. You could argue the same thing about some of the college football coaching jobs they get.
Yeah.
That they're given the job in dire circumstances and, high expectations and low probability.
Like, the fact that the Texans won any games this year, I think is pretty phenomenal. And I'm not saying that guy is a great I don't know if he is, but I watch a lot of football.
You don't fire the guy after that 1 year.
No.
Not with what you got to deal with.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. And it was crazy to fire Flores. He won 8 of his last 9 games.
Yeah. And he's like the second winningest coach in the last 30 years of the Dolphins. Like,
I mean, both of those firings were strange.
Yeah. Very, very strange. And, obviously.
If they hire McCown in the Texans, that's going to rankle a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I saw that Eric Bieniemy's got some interviews today. And he was everybody's darling last year, and this year he wasn't even getting many interviews.
No.
So,
and then,
I mean, you go on this time and you get this many interviews, there's two things you could be said. It's a sham interview, or he's not an impressive interview.
Yeah.
But we don't know that because we're not sitting in on the interviews.
No, but based on watching, I know I bag on him a little bit hard down here, but I think, Drew Brees is pretty terrible on TV. And we've seen 20 years of Drew Brees being terrible on TV. Like, he's just not a dynamic personality. Great quarterback, not somebody you want to watch on television. Brian Flores seemed like when you watch him in interviews, he's not Mike Tomlin level entertaining, but few guys are in the league. But,
No. But he's not a joke. I mean, he's serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, and you read the tea leaves, apparently he wanted Justin Herbert, not Tua. But, to be fair, I think most of the league thought Tua was the best pick. There was an entire season of tank for Tua.
Yeah. And so if this guy wanted Justin Herbert instead of Tua, and we see what Justin Herbert is, shouldn't that be validation that somebody should hire this guy?
Yeah. And then apparently...
On that alone.
Yeah. And then I know Leftwich was the inside track for the Jacksonville job, but he and apparently 5 other coaches do not want to work with the idiot GM in Jacksonville.
No. And I think that's smart. I think Leftwich should just, he's probably going to be the heir apparent to Bruce Arians.
I would say so, yeah.
So I'd say he's got a good shot there, if nowhere else. But if you're going to go and you're going to be a black coach going in a situation that's not a great situation, you got to have some things in your favor. You can't just walk into a job like that.
No.
And that, obviously that's a disaster. And I don't know why, Khan is so stuck on this guy.
It's boggling because he's never been good at anything. I mean, I'm saying never been good, but he certainly doesn't have a resume to back it up. And then if everybody in the league seems to genuinely dislike this person, which means it's also hard to do business with other teams, I just don't know what you're thinking. And you just have a giant investment in the highest rated quarterback since Andrew Luck sitting on your bench, and you're letting, good quality quarterback, like a guy that would probably be really good for Lawrence and Leftwich, just walk out the door because you're stuck on this other guy. It makes no sense.
Well, don't they have the number one pick again?
I think they do, yes.
I think they do too.
But again, even if he turns out to be great, you can't give the GM any credit because Trevor Lawrence was the number one pick in the draft since he was like a junior in high school. So
yeah, I mean he was the number one draft by acclamation. There was no debate there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like some of those years when you got this quarterback or this quarterback. Who are you going to take?
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It was just like, all right, so if you have number two pick, who are you going to take? That's where we went right away with that.
Exactly.
Well, it's going to be an interesting week. It's going to take longer than a week to iron all this out because as the lawyers have it, it's going to be an interesting story to follow. So, listeners, follow it and let us know what you think about it because we're happy to talk about it.
And we'll end our NFL talk with the pathetic. But one highlight from it, T.J. Watt had a strip sack that Myles Garrett caught in the air, returned for a touchdown in the terrible Pro Bowl. But congratulations, T.J. Watt.
And I'm not going to turn on the Pro Bowl, and I don't care about the highlights.
Yeah.
But I do like hearing that T.J. Watt had a strip sack.
Yeah.
And I sure hope, and this is my Steeler moment, I sure hope that he wins Defensive Player of the Year because I can't think of anybody that had a better year than he did and had better stats playing in fewer games than he did.
No. And then you look at their win-loss record with him and without him, and it's not even close.
Yeah. He's got to be the Defensive Player of the Year. If he's not, something's wrong.
Well, I guess we can transition to another sport's former Defensive Player of the Year every year, Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
Who just,
And the trade deadline's coming up this week, isn't it?
Friday. Or the 10th. Is that Friday? Maybe it's Thursday.
No, the 10th is... the 10th is Friday.
Okay. So that's our trade deadline. And again...
I take back the 10th is Thursday.
Okay, yeah. So that's our trade. But, I think trades can roll in the morning of Friday still, too.
Yeah, once they get all the details worked out. But if you're sitting on Ben Simmons and you're Philadelphia, you are just dumber than a box of rocks. Because if you think you're going to hold on to him and get anything more than you get right now, you're crazy. And the longer he sits out and the rustier he gets and the more words start to percolate around him, it's just bad. It's just dumb. Move him. Get something for him. Help out Embiid. Don't waste this season because you've wasted most of it already by playing with, one arm tied behind your back by not having a full roster of talented players.
And again, Embiid, long history of injuries, over 7 feet tall, well over 250 pounds. You never know when he's not going to be good. And this year, we talked about it a little bit last week, like the East, out West, it seems like you really have Phoenix and you've got Golden State. Whereas in the East, I don't know who's, I saw that they had odds I think the Boston Celtics currently have the same odds of making the finals as the Golden State Warriors based on how much stronger the West is. And the Celtics have never won more than 3 games in a row this year. So if you're going to win the East, this might be the year to just, like we talked about, push your chips in. And, the Simmons for Harden talk, the Nets keep coming out, like Steve Nash and everybody saying we don't want to trade Harden. Harden's not going anywhere. And it is ironic, though, because I don't know, how good Simmons and Embiid will even be together. Especially,
Especially if one doesn't want to be there.
And especially with overweight Harden. A guy who doesn't seem like he's going to age as well as he should.
We will see what happens.
Yeah.
But staying on our NBA talk, I saw who I would vote for the league MVP in John Morant last night in Orlando. and he had 33 points in a little over 2.5 quarters, I would say. And he was a cat playing with mice. He was so dominant. And whenever I hear the comparisons for Iverson, since I've seen them both play, I got to be honest, I don't think there's a comparison. He's faster, he's quicker, he's bigger, he's got unbelievable hops. He can shoot, he can distribute. He's very enjoyable to watch if you like a little pastry. But I got to tell you, he's as good as anybody I've seen in a long time. And, as much as I loved Russ in his heyday, and I've always been a Michael Jordan fan, this guy's got a little bit of both.
Yeah,
I like him a lot. He was very impressive to me last night. And that team is in third place in the East. They're 6.5 games behind the Suns. And they have the best record in the NBA since Christmas, 18-4. And it's a team that likes each other.
Yeah. They have a real identity. They know their places.
Very well coached. Substitutes smart. Good role players. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think they can win the NBA championship, but I tell you what, they're going to be a tough out for whoever they face.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
But what a joy to watch him. I just loved it. I had such a good time.
And we also talked about off air, like, Zion has been incredible when he's been healthy, which has been very infrequently since he's joined the league. But if you're Memphis, you're really excited about not having the number 1 overall pick, and you got the number 2 pick, and you got John Morant.
Yeah. That's not a bad consolation prize.
No.
And I mean, I hope, Jason, we've talked about this before, when his second contract comes around, I hope it's still in Memphis.
Well, I think the good news is Memphis is one of the best drafting teams in the NBA. They seem like they're a very well-run franchise. And
it's a good basketball market.
It's a good basketball market, and it's not the olden days where you need to be in a New York or an LA to make to get endorsements anymore. So I mean, I think if you can stay with a smart organization, you want to stay with a smart organization.
Absolutely, and he's like I said, just a joy to watch.
Especially because we can transition to 2 other teams real quickly. The Knicks are a disaster again, and the Lakers seem like they might be a disaster. Speaking of the 2 big marketers teams.
Yeah, and we talked about it when Thibodeau got the Knicks job, and he came out last year, and everybody said loving this guy. So what a move! What a great move! And I said on this show, he's got a shelf life.
Yeah.
And I said he wears people out, and they tune him out. And he just it took him a season and a third to get there. Not a season and a half, season and a third.
And if you're the Knicks, I know you wanted to.
They're not going to improve. That's where they are right now. That's what you got.
And you wanted to look more respectable and look like a better organization, which they did a little bit last year. But you also have, Mitchell Robinson. You just traded a first-round pick for Cam Reddish. You got R.J. Barrett, and you have a coach that notoriously does not like playing young players. But you need to start developing, It's great that he still wants to play, I'm sure he would play Hakeem Noah if he walked in the building right now. But, you need to develop young players in the New York Knicks.
Yes, you do. And keep playing like this, they'll have a chance to get one early on.
Yeah, because you either want to be able to develop them into stars that the New York Knicks fans fall in love with and that's your guys, or make them look good enough in their playing career that you can flip them for a guy like Dame or somebody else to bring in. So, I mean, either way, you can't be playing, Kemba Walker and Fournier and all these other oldies like all the time. It just doesn't work, especially if you're not even going to win.
And then staying with our old theme, Russ sitting on the bench last night, not getting off the bench in overtime, shooting, I think, 1 for 10, 5 points.
Yeah.
And the point the commentators were making is that Russ looks real hesitant when he's on the court. And, we saw this in Houston. We saw this in Washington, both places where he's had to make an adjustment. This adjustment just seems like it's taking longer, and maybe this adjustment's just not going to work.
Well, I think the other problem is, LeBron has missed a ton of time. Davis has missed a ton of time. The 3 of them have barely been on the court together at all. So I mean, Russ was clearly going to have to make adjustments to his game as he's done in the past few years. But how are we supposed to make adjustments when you can't even adjust to the guys you're playing with? You're playing with,
Sure.
and then everybody else on your team is the subject of trade rumors. It just feels like, and your coach is on the verge of being fired every week. Like, it just seems like a very not great basketball situation at any level to be at. And that takes nothing away from he's not been playing well, but that does not seem like a good spot right now.
No, and
And LeBron doing LeBron things like tweeting out that if it meant playing with Bronny, he'd leave LA. It's a very passive aggressive LeBron thing to say.
yeah, I think you know what I think we've seen the last of LeBron in the finals.
I think unless he ring chases with Bronny on some other team at some point, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
And he seems like he might be one of the worst general managers in the history of basketball as well. He's not good at that job.
Together, but it's
Yeah.
And you and I had I'm not backing away from what I said. I mean, you and I were backing this as a team to beat.
Yeah.
Just there's going to be the what's the movie with all the old people in it, the superhero movie, and they all come together and they rally and they win. I can't remember the name of it, but anyhow, I thought it was going to be like that. I thought, okay, one last time, LeBron goes out on a high note with all of his friends. They're all over 35. They all win, and they walk away in the sunset together. But that ain't happening.
No. Well, Anthony Davis never became. I mean, again, he played incredible the other night against the Clippers when they lost. And it pains me to say it, but, Russ played great down the stretch up to that last defensive possession. And then he went to double on Reggie Jackson in the corner, and he ran right past him. Jackson spun right past and got the layup. And you're sitting there looking, you're like, what do you do? Like, sometimes he's mind-boggling, Russ.
Yeah, I can't figure it out. Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, you had a good
entertainment moment?
What's that?
You got an entertainment moment?
I have two. I finished the second season of The Witcher on Netflix, and it's a fantastic fantasy show with Henry Cavill. It's very close to the books and the games. It is a show that has basilisks and magic and wizards and elves, so if that's not your jam, it's not going to be your jam. But if it is your jam, it's tasty, tasty jam. And then I also watched Ghostbusters Afterlife, which was wonderful. It was a very nostalgia-fueled, very cute Ghostbusters movie. And it's a movie that embraces and brings in the 1984 original Ghostbuster and Ghostbusters 2 into this movie. And then you throw in Paul Rudd, one of the kids from Stranger Things, and, it's a fun, nostalgia-filled ride.
He's a very likable actor in his roles.
He's just a likable guy in general, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if it's spoilery or not, but if it is, hold your ears and do that la 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 for the next 10 seconds. But they bring in the original cast, which is pretty wonderful too.
Yeah, I like that idea. In fact, that might get me to watch it just because of the way you portrayed it. And I like Paul Rudd. So
yeah.
I might want to watch that.
Yeah.
I've watched the first 2 episodes of Ozark.
Okay.
I was ready to bail because it's just too depressing.
Oh.
I mean, if I was Marty Bird, I'd have killed myself for the first season rather than go through everything he goes through. I mean, there's no way. I can't handle it. But everybody has assured me that I really want to watch through episode 7 this year, and then make up my mind. They said, you got to watch through episode 7. So we were down here at the beach with Janet, and we had Janet watch 1 and 2. So we'll binge 3 through 7.
And I heard the weather's not going to be very
I
cooperative.
have my decision as to what I think.
Yeah.
But it's just such an intense show. And I mean, and it's always got a turn. A left turn, a right turn, a stop sign, run. I mean, it just wears me out. It's well done, but I like to watch things with likable people. And I've got to watch Castle after this is over so I can go to bed.
Aye.
I'm telling you, I need likable people.
Well, I'll transition to one more entertainment-ish moment. It was very up and down for me. I know people are loving it. I'm watching the social medias and people just adore it. But the Kristen Bell, the girl in the window across from the girl in the window, which is supposed to be a parody of, Girl on the Train and all those sorts of books. Um, I found it very uneven. It didn't seem like all the directors knew they were directing a comedy at times. Because you would have some absolutely outlandish airplane level jokes, which you would expect. But then you had some times where it was like watching the Amy Adams Woman in the Window movie where it was like a depressing woman getting drunk all the time. And it just didn't seem like everybody, I mean, like I said, at times it was incredibly silly, and then at times it seemed like they veered so far away.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't quite work for us in our household. But
Well, I'll tell you, I'm in the castle right now.
really,
Yeah, it's a drama comedy,
okay.
and it's just like manic, not manic, it's like Rockford Files, where you have a serious story, but there's always humor in it, right?
Yeah.
And they did an episode where Castle had a broken leg, he's in a wheelchair, right?
Okay.
And it was a takeoff on Rear Window,
Sure.
and it was one of the best tributes to Rear Window with a fantastic twist at the end I've ever seen. Really good. And you know what? I'll get you the episode number so that you can go and watch that one episode and tell me what you think.
Okay, I'll do that.
I loved it. It was just so well done. Of course, then the next episode, another episode, they're in the Wild Wild West at a dude ranch, and they jump the shark in that one. So, I mean, yeah, I can see some of the episodes. The writing is really good. The storylines are really good. Some of it's campy, but it's entertaining, and it's a good break when you're watching something serious. You need a break to go to bed.
That makes sense.
Well, I got a food moment. La Terraza, which I hadn't been to in over a year. Sharon and I went there for our anniversary, and we had buscaiola, which is a fettuccine with a bolognese sauce, but not a real heavy meat sauce, more of a bolognese and cream with peas and portobello mushrooms. Outstanding. Absolutely
Okay.
outstanding. And the service and the attentiveness and the wine, everything we had was just great. And so if you're ever in Ybor City, I've talked about Casa San Stefano, which is just down the street. This is another gem in Ybor City. And Jason used to go there all the time and eat chicken parm before you moved.
Yeah. It's a great chicken parm.
Great restaurant, 14 tables. The owner's from Italy. He goes back to Italy every summer and closes the restaurant and reopens in the fall. And they used to be open for lunch. Now they're only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I mean they're that good. So
But they're full.
yeah.
Every table's full Thursday, Friday, Saturday night.
Yeah.
Well, I guess next week, can we try and do it after the Super Bowl, Jason? Can we try and do it on Monday? Our
Um,
show?
I got to see what the schedule is. It probably won't work for me, because I'm working crazy hours on set right now.
All right, we'll talk later on in the week and
Yeah.
figure out which day we want to do the show. Because we do want to talk about the Super Bowl. And, everybody will be burned up on pre-Super Bowl by the time Super Bowl happens. So,
Oh, I
we'll
think
see.
yeah. No, I'm ready just to watch the game already.
I am too. So I won't be watching a lot of things this week. Oh, sad note. Nicole Briscoe is moving from her morning spot on ESPN to, and I guess it's a hot and cold for me. She's moving to the 11 o'clock Sports Center with John Anderson. And I love John Anderson, and I love Nicole Briscoe. But I thought Nicole Briscoe and Randy Scott was the best combination on the air. I thought they really knew each other. They were funny together. They were informative. They had opinions. They were just a dynamic team. And because Nicole's got young kids and everything, they're getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and not being there to get the kids off to school and everything was tough. So she's going to the 11 o'clock Sports Center with John Anderson. And I guess they'll pair Randy up with somebody different. But that was my absolute favorite team.
Well, that's good for her then, on some level.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank all our
Everyone,
Patreon
enjoy
sponsors.
your Super Bowl week. Don't
Yeah.
don't OD on it. Enjoy the commercials, which we'll talk about next time we do the show as well.
Yeah. It's a little different though, because I feel like in the last few years, like every commercial is available online like 3 days before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And all the old heads get excited because you get to watch Eminem, Dr. Dre, and other near generic. What is it? An octogenarian? Is it the old people?
Yeah.
Rap and Snoop Dogg.
And I never thought I'd think. I'm thinking Snoop Dogg is so mainstream now, and that's a scary thought to me.
He's about as mainstream as you could possibly be.
I am Martha Stewart, Lee Iacocca, and now, you know, the spokesperson for Corona.
Yeah, and he's done a bunch of bad movies and TV show. He's just
Oh well.
But good for him. He's
All
making
right,
a lot of
everyone.
money.
Enjoy. Have a great week.